Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. Before we begin, let me introduce some members of town government that act as advisors to this board. To my left is Martin Simon, he's counsel to the board. To his left is Blaise Donadio, senior planner in the planning department. To his left is Liam Trotta, who is a member of the planner in the planning department. And to his left, we have Sabrina Butita, who is from the Department of Environment and Waterways. You are here this evening seeking relief from the town zoning ordinance. New York State statute requires that any town that adopts zoning must also have a Board of Appeals to act as a relief valve so that persons can seek relief without the expense of legal proceedings. The most common kinds of applications before this board are area variances. Area variances deal with dimensions of lot area, frontage, height, setbacks, and parking spaces. New York State statutes mandate that the board must consider the following 5 criteria in area variances. When you come to the podium to present your application, you need to address these 5 areas, and they're posted on the board, on the TV here. We can see them. Actually, they can't see them right now.
Yeah, they can.
And you have, okay, so you have one over there. And they are as follows. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created. Whether the applicant has other feasible alternatives. Whether the variance is substantial. Whether an adverse impact on the environment will be created. And whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. The statute requires the board to balance the interests of the applicant and those of the neighborhood or community. This statute further requires that the board shall grant the minimum variance it shall deem necessary and adequate, and at the same time preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board has the power to impose reasonable conditions for granting variances. Regarding procedures, cases will be called in the order that they are advertised. When your case is called, please come forward, submit your affidavits and mailing receipts to Mr. Donadio, and then you'll be given the opportunity to explain to the board why you need the variance. After the applicant is done speaking, all interested parties will be given one opportunity and only one opportunity to be heard. Please organize your thoughts and keep your remarks factual and related to the case. Then I will ask the applicant to come back to the podium to answer your concerns. The board will then close the case and reserve decision. After all the hearings are closed, the board will review the cases and decide some of them. Others will be reviewed at a later date. There are 3 ways to find out the results of your case. You can wait until after the public hearing, but there's no guarantee that the board will act on your case tonight. 2, you can check the website after 11 a.m. tomorrow. And 3, you can wait and be notified by mail. After the hearing is closed, no additional information or testimony can be submitted by the applicant or interested parties. We ready to go? All right.
Okay. The first case on the agenda, case number 19246, Richard and Ann McDougall, 10 Bernard Street, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the south side of Chestnut Stump Road, 378 feet west of Sunken Meadow Road. The property is owned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 43,560 square feet to 32,671 square feet. To reduce the minimum lot frontage at the setback line from 150 feet to 80 feet, to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered for slopes greater than 15%, to increase the maximum permitted slope of a driveway from 8% to 20% for a proposed 2,120 square foot, 1-story, single-family dwelling.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant, and we've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. If you take a quick look at the survey submitted, you will see that this is an odd-shaped piece of property. It fronts on Chestnut Stump Road and also Bernard Street. There is an existing house which my client is going to demolish and build a new house in the same place as the existing house. There was also, years ago, a variance approval on the garage that you can see on the upper part of the survey. Now, the reason why this placement of the house looks the way it does, and it's odd-shaped, and that's why we're here, is because we really couldn't gain access on Chestnut Stump because of the topography. If you look at the topography lines that are indicated, it would be impossible almost to come up Chestnut Stump Road. So we want to do exactly what was done before and come up on Bernard Street with the driveway. And, you know, we can't really change the terrain of the driveway, and it's, you know, from 8% to 20%, but that's the only way we can get access. And that's been there, and it has been done that way for years and years and years. So, number one, we don't think the variance is going to produce any impact on adjacent properties or the neighborhood. It's been there and like that for many, many years. Whether the variance is substantial. Because of the odd shape of the lot, the frontage, which should be 150 feet, is only 80 feet, but there really is no other way to deal with the construction of a house on this particular lot. Whether the benefit can be achieved by an alternative, there is no alternative here. That's why the original house was built the way it was built. Whether the variance would have an adverse effect on the environment, it's going to be basically a house on a lot that's less than 43,560 square feet, but this house was already approved, the existing house, many years ago. So, and it's going to be a basic house with the new cesspool system, so it's not going to have any adverse effect on the environment other than any other house would in the neighborhood. Whether the difficulty was self-created, well, you can see the difficulty, I guess, was created, who knows, 50, 80 years ago when this lot was developed the way it was developed. So basically, we're coming into the board and saying, give us the variances that have already existed, whether they were variances years ago or not. This is the only way we can build a house. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No? Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right. Would anybody in the audience like to be heard on this
Oh,
application?
one other thing, I'm sorry to interrupt. We submitted a letter from Clayton Funeral Home operator Anna McElhone in support of the application.
Yeah, we have it.
I think you have it.
Yep, it's in our file. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody in the audience like to be heard on this application? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, case is closed. Thank you.
Do you want to do the...
Together. Yeah.
There are two consecutive applications on the agenda for the same purpose. Case numbers 19249 and 19248. The applicant for both is Island Preservation Project, LLC. The location of the first property is the east side of Grove Street, 460 feet south of Washington Drive in Kings Park. It is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances for this lot to reduce the minimum lot area from 7,500 square feet to 4,000 square feet, to reduce the minimum lot frontage at the setback line from 50 feet to 40 feet for a proposed 1,040 square foot, two-story single-family dwelling for the purpose of transfer of development rights only. The second property is located on Grove Street, the west side of Grove Street, 480 feet south of Washington Drive. Again, in Kings Park, it is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 7,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet for a proposed 1,040 square foot, two-story, single-family dwelling for the purpose of transfer of development rights only.
Good evening.
Evening. Swear me in? Just want to swear me in?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Just name and address.
Louis
Spell your-
Castellano, 2693 Middle Country Road, Lake Grove, New York.
Spell your last name for the,
Castellano, Castellano.
thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, and if any members of the community here. We are not building homes here. We are just using these to transfer development rights. The lots will remain natural and forever. We're not touching them, we're not building a house. Unfortunately, the town makes us file for a house to go for the TDR. But no house is being built here. There will never be a house here. This land will remain natural. And we ask the board for a favorable decision.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No comments, Mr. Chairman, but I do just want to reiterate what Lou said. The applicant is seeking variances to, in theory, construct a home on these two lots. However, the purpose of doing this is not to construct a home. It is strictly for the ability for the property owner to transfer the development rights to another property owner in town that needs sanitary flow in order to meet health department requirements. There will be no development on these two properties.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
Nothing? Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up.
Evening.
Good evening. We have your name and address for the
My
record.
name is Larry O'Connor. I live at 24th Road, Kings Park, New York.
And just spell your last name, please.
O'Connor, O-C-O-N-N-O-R. You want to say something?
Oh, Claudia Rocchio, 18 Forest Road. Claudia Rocchio, 18 Forest Road.
Are you guys together, or you both?
We
Yes.
live side by side.
So does one of you want to speak and then the other, or are you going to? Okay,
Doesn't
so
matter.
just go ahead, Mr. O'Connor.
Okay. I understand what the gentleman said, but why do you want to do this if you're not going to build and just for the transfer of title? This way, if you're transferring title, what about the future people that buy it?
So I can explain that to you. In the town of Smithtown, there's an ordinance, it's called the TDFR ordinance. It's called the Transfer of Development Flow Rights Ordinance. And what it does is it allows people to take advantage of property without actually developing it. So the town had crafted the ordinance to discourage developing environmentally sensitive, undersized lots, which these two are both, I believe they're both undersized lots. Yes. And what happens is, you can take the rights to develop it and sell it to someone else, and it's preserved in perpetuity. It can never be developed, and somebody else, somewhere else in town, can purchase those rights and use them for the health department if their lot is too small. Or, I'll give you an example. Years ago, the LA Fitness on the south side of Main Street in Smithtown, are you familiar with that one? Purchased flow rights from the Smithtown Historical Society so that they could put a gym there, because the health department said that they didn't have enough flow to put the gym. So just to put you at ease, these sites will be sterilized forever.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so the flow
Just
right.
announce your name again
I,
and spell it.
Claudia Rocchio, still Claudia Rocchio,
How
18
do you
Forest Road.
Spell your last name.
Rocchio.
Thank you.
So the, I just lost my train of thought, darn it. Oh, right. So the sanitary, whatever's being transferred, doesn't have to necessarily be on the property that's actually being developed. So this is kind of like, looks good on paper thing, okay. What I don't understand then is why does it say like reduce the minimum frontal and setback? Why does it have to say all of this? Is
Because the health department needs from this board to prove that something could have been built there. And when we say that something could have been built there, they will give them the rights to transfer it somewhere else.
Okay, so something could have been built based upon this setback.
Correct, because of the size of the lot.
Got it.
But again, nothing is ever going to be built there.
Yeah, no, I knew we've been told, we just, okay. So someone owns the land and someone else owns the building rights on it, basically.
Correct, I believe that's.
Is that how it's gonna
They'll
work?
own the land, or sometimes they'll transfer the land to the town or
They
to
may
a-
donate it to the town. They, excuse me, they could also transfer title to adjacent property owners if they want to take the property and keep it in the state that it's in without actually clearing it and using it as a yard or a buildable lot.
Okay. Is there anyone responsible for cleaning up the property in this instance?
Well, every
The owner.
property owner is responsible for maintenance on their property. I can't give you a direct answer to that. It's probably a question you might want to put to the Public Safety Department to see if there is any maintenance that needs to be performed on the property, that they notify the owner and that it's taken care of.
Okay, but right now it's the same owner?
Correct.
Right.
Just okay, all right.
Right now, it's also being used as a dump.
Well, then,
Well, that can't be done.
this, I'm sorry, the safety, who was it to seek
Public safety.
public safety about it? So I guess we're going to have to talk to them. All right, thank you.
7,600?
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on this application? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, case is closed. This one first, right?
This is 48, 49.
48, 49. Oops, sorry.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19251, SEPA Realty LLC, 47 Holly Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Holly Drive and Hazel Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to permit a wall greater than 4 feet in the required front yard for existing retaining walls A and B, to increase the maximum height of a retaining wall from 4 feet to 7 feet for walls A and B, to reduce the setback from lot line on Hazel Drive from 10 feet to 0 for an existing 6-foot PVC fence on a corner lot, to increase the height of a 4-foot fence on top of a 7-foot retaining wall from 4 feet to 7 feet for wall A, to reduce the minimum setback of a 4-foot fence from a 7-foot retaining wall from 7 feet to 0 for wall A, to reduce the minimum setback of a 3-foot retaining wall from the property line from 3 feet to 0 for the existing walls A and B.
Good evening.
Good evening. Members of the board, good evening. My name is James Schwartz. I'm here on behalf of SEPA Realty. SEPA Realty purchased this property with the intent on renovating it. It was in disrepair. Part of that renovation was interior alterations only. The retaining wall in question was existing along the driveway. The retaining wall was in disrepair as well. SEPA endeavored to reconstruct that wall, and that's why it was built. It is a little higher. It was because of the grade coming down from the rear yard towards the driveway, so it was just built up to preserve the grade that was coming down towards the driveway. In addition, the fence was existing. The existing fence was removed, the PVC fence was replaced, so there was always a fence there, there was always a retaining wall there, they were in disrepair, they were just replaced. So it was a like-kind replace. There's virtually no impact to the neighbors. If anything, it was to beautify the property, it makes it look better. The retaining wall before were railroad ties that were disintegrating, now they're nice stone retaining walls. That's why they were built.
You can ask. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Yeah, I see there's a fence that's not on your property?
There's a fence that's not, oh, the existing fence on Hazel Drive?
Yes.
Again, there was a fence previously there. It was just removed and replaced. At the time, I guess SEPA didn't realize that it was actually into the street. It doesn't look like it's into the street if you looked at it from a picture, but evidently it's into the town's property.
Yeah, that will have to be brought back onto your property.
I'm sorry?
That property will have to be brought back onto your property.
Well, that's what the variance is for.
We can only grant a variance to 0. We can't grant a variance over a property line.
Are you, if, I don't have a copy of the survey here, are you looking at the survey?
Yeah, you can see it up on the,
That's the plot plan.
I can't see that. May I?
here.
It's different here.
We have a survey here if you want to take a look.
Which fence are we seeing?
The one that's highlighted in yellow. You don't see it in that picture, you see it on the actual survey.
We're talking about a fence that extends onto Hazel Drive.
Yes.
Right. That fence already existed in that position prior. They just replaced the fence that was there and put up that fence.
But we don't have the authority to allow you to put it on the town property. It has to be brought back onto 0 on the property line.
My understanding was that we could keep it there, but we needed to apply for the variance. So it extends, there's not a street there, it's not even a sidewalk. It's just town property where the fence extends probably from the property line and it comes out a couple of feet.
So on the survey, on the southwest corner, the fence is about 3.2 feet onto the town right-of-way, and in the northwest corner, it is about 1.7 feet onto the town right-of-way. So, no, about a foot onto the town right-of-way. So there are 2 ways that you can deal with that. One is to bring it into compliance, because like I said, this board doesn't have the authority to grant you use of public property.
Right.
So you can either bring it into compliance, or you can petition the highway department to keep it there, which some people have done in the past, and that, it would be their call, not ours.
Okay. So I
Is
would.
that correct?
Okay, well, we could bring the fence onto the property line.
Correct. If we grant it, then you can go to 0. 0 is basically on the property line.
Right, so I would be seeking to have it brought to 0, and then we would move it onto the property line.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
Those are DEW's comments, but you've already addressed them.
Would anybody in the audience like to be heard on this application? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. We gotta wait for a
So
motion.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moved and seconded. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Onward.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19252, William Seamy, 21 Harcourt Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property, the north side of Harcourt Avenue, 37 feet north of Iona Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is less than 10 feet for a proposed 392 square foot first floor addition.
Good evening.
All right. So we're applying for a
Oh, we just need,
small
sorry, we just need your name and address and spell your name.
William Chimay, 21 Harcourt.
Okay.
So he-
And you know the spelling because it's in the,
Yeah. He's William too. So, applying for a small one-story addition and we were notified in the area that it's high water in the neighborhood. Did a drill test, water at 9 feet, the ruling is 10 feet, and we're applying for the variance to the addition. You know, we did some reports that some other people in the neighborhood had the same situation, and that's been approved.
So it's just the high groundwater.
Yeah.
Anyone on the board like to be heard on this?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19253, Christopher Riley, 116 Oak Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southwest corner of Oak Avenue and Willow Street. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Willow Street from 25 feet to 9 feet for a proposed 15-foot by 30-foot in-ground swimming pool with filter, to reduce the front yard setback from lot line on Willow Street from 10 feet to 0 for a proposed 6-foot vinyl fence.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Malguanera, 713 Main Street, Port Jefferson, agent.
Do we have,
It's Malguanera.
do you have a power of attorney, I hope?
We gave what we were told to give. I mean,
Is the applicant here?
no.
No.
I mean, we never, we applied from the beginning.
Yeah, the problem is that the property owner
I understand.
has to be here or give you a power of attorney for us to hear the case.
I mean, we weren't told of such, but, well,
Are they close?
I can reach out to them and see.
If you want to see, we can
Yeah.
call you again after. If you can
Sure.
get them down, all they got to do is just say it's okay for you to present.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll call that one again.
Yeah. The next case on the agenda is case number 19247, Sterling North America Realty LLC, 101 Corporate Drive, Hauppauge. The location of the property is the southwest corner of Corporate Drive and New Highway. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the height of an accessory structure from 18 feet to 24 feet for a proposed paper waste vacuum and compactor system.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. Apparently, I guess the building department didn't know what to call it, so they're calling this big piece of machinery an accessory structure, and maybe that makes sense. The reason why they need, this is a cardboard and paper compressive machine, I guess you'd call it. The people that I represent are in the printing business, so they get a lot of paper and cardboard with their deliveries. You can see that the parcel is located on New Highway and Corporate Drive. And from New Highway, there'd be no possibility of seeing the the accessory structure. Also, on Corporate Drive, you may see a portion of the machinery, I guess you call it, but this is nowhere near any residential, excuse me, zoning district. It's all commercial, and they need this machinery in order to do business in the industrial park, in order to compress the paper and then get it to be recycled. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. Will it produce an impact on adjacent properties? We think not. This is an industrial park. Whether the variance is substantial, it kind of looks like it's substantial, but when you think about it, it's a piece of machinery that's necessary to do business in this company's business model. Whether the benefit can be achieved by another alternative, well, I guess the only other alternative is an alternative that really doesn't make sense would be to ship the cardboard and paper without having the ability to compress it, and it would be very costly for my client to do that. Whether the variance would have an environmental effect, there is no environmental effect on this, on the property. It's nothing to do with any smoke or heat. So it has no adverse effect, again, on the environment, and whether the difficulty was created by the applicant. They haven't done it yet. We're asking this board for permission to put this piece of machinery on the property.
Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone on the board like to ask any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank-
Planning?
Just one question. Do you know what the hours of operation for the business are?
They're generally normal hours of operation. But again, as I said, even if they were working 3 shifts, it has no effect on any residential area. So I'm not sure if they go into 2 or 3 shifts, but that's how they have to do business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to be heard on this application? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Regularly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Case closed. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming in.
No. Well, maybe he's outside.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah. It says it right on the application. Okay.
So that's not going to happen.
So we'll adjourn to the next meeting?
Next meeting,
It's a small one. Put it on. Spring is coming, and it looks like they're gonna want the pool. So that was case number 19253. If anyone was here for that case, we're gonna adjourn it until March 11th?
311.
3/11. The next one?
All right. The next case, excuse me, on the agenda, Case number 19240, ShopRite Federal Realty OPLP, 335 Nesconset Highway, New York State Route 347, in Hauppauge. The location of the property is the south side of New York State Route 347, 614 feet west of New York State Route 111. The property is owned NB. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 32 feet for a proposed 79-square-foot illuminated wall sign.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Michael McCarthy. I'm an attorney with offices at 444 New York Avenue in Huntington, and I'm here this evening on behalf of Federal. The board may remember I was here about a year and a half ago when Federal had recently renovated the shopping center. It's the Hauppauge Shopping Center, and it's located on the south side of 347. I hope the board members appreciate, the effort that Federal put into renovating the shopping center. Tonight, I'm here because Federal is requesting a sign variance on behalf of its anchor tenant, ShopRite. Presently, there's a banner which is hanging on the recently renovated facade of ShopRite, which shows what the sign would look like. It would be the same size, it's 79 square feet. But in the zoning district, the height of the sign can only be 15 feet. In 1998, a variance was granted to allow it to be at 25 feet, and we're requesting permission to raise it a little bit higher to 32 feet. The shopping center is quite large. It's about 12 and a half acres. Again, it's located in the neighborhood business district. But the ShopRite being the location, if you're looking at it on your screen, it's located deep inside the shopping center, several hundred feet off of 347. And ShopRite's concerned about, branding and visibility and things of that nature. We feel, respectfully that even if we lowered it to the 25 feet, it might look a little bit odd. And we're hoping that the board would appreciate that the need for ShopRite, the amount of effort that Federal has put into the shopping center to renovate it. I think it's been an overall success. I know all of you are very familiar with that shopping center and what it looked like in the past and how much money Federal has put into it. So respectfully, if the board would see fit, it would help ShopRite tremendously. I think they are also concerned about competition. So they're just trying to maintain their presence, their footprint. They've been there for a long time. We don't feel that there would be any desirable change by the granting of the variance to allow the sign to continue. I hope that the board would not consider it to be substantial because we're going from 25 feet to 32 feet. We believe that it's in keeping with the pattern of development in the area, and of course, we do not believe that there would be any environmental impact as a consequence of granting the application. Does the board have any questions?
I'll find out. Anyone have any questions? I guess the question I would have is to this sign faces south?
Yes. Yes.
Are there residences directly across the highway from there, because it is an illuminated sign?
I don't believe that there's any residences that would be impacted, but
You got that? No, I got you. Okay. I guess we'll find out then. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
So the height of the sign is, you say it's going from 15 to 32, but now they're saying that 25 was approved by the town?
There may have been a prior BZA case that approved the original sign to that height. I wasn't aware of it, I didn't look for it,
Okay.
because
I had included it, Blaise, in the application package. Became aware of it, but it was in 1998, and it's in the application package. I included a copy of the decision, but it was 1998, and the zoning board allowed the height, I think for ShopRite actually, to be increased from the 15 feet to the 25 feet.
Okay.
But to be clear, if you drive by the shopping center, they have it's vinyl, it looks real, but it's the same size, same dimension, same height as what they're proposing. We'd like to think it's in keeping with the new facade. When the shopping center was under renovation and we were speaking with planning, I didn't handle that R&M Engineering did, it was kind of depicted as to what it would look like. It's set back awfully deep into the shopping center, several hundred feet off the road. At 79 feet, being several hundred feet away, I can't imagine it's going to have much of an impact to anybody, so.
Planning?
Quick question, the sign that's on the wall now is just a temporary sign?
Temporary.
Or it's temporary?
It's just temporary place, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And that's at the 32-foot height?
correct.
Okay,
So what you're seeing is what it would look like.
okay. Two things just for the board. Number one, the sign faces north towards 347, not south.
Okay.
There are no residents across the street from the shopping center. And at 32 feet, yes, it is a substantial request. However, as Mr. McCarthy stated, the supermarket is roughly 500 to 600 feet off 347. So the extra height will give them a little bit more visibility with people driving by.
Thank you, Blaise.
Okay. Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Case is closed. Thank you. Save ourselves a little bit of time. Want to do those?
They want underneath them. I don't know if it's the same one.
Looks like it. A little easier to see, right? Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19250, 655 Middle Country Road LLC, 655 Middle Country Road, St. James. Location of the property, the north side of Middle Country Road, 330 feet west of Lake Avenue. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting a certificate of existing use for an existing 863-square-foot barbershop in the WSI zoning district.
Hi, good evening.
evening.
My name is Eric Gockstein. I'm the new owner of 655 Middle Country Road, and we're here today to request a certificate of existing use. I'm here with Carmine. He's the architect
Okay.
helping
Would
me
you like
out.
to speak on your behalf?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. Yeah, sure. It's Gokstein.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carmine Grasso from Cataldo Grasso Architects, office at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I submitted the mailing and posting affidavits and the mail receipts to the planning department this afternoon. So as we said, I represent Mr. Gockstein in his application for a certificate of existing use for an existing barber shop, which is not permitted in the WSI zoning district. He recently bought the property, and we're just trying to make everything legalized. So the barber shop has existed in this location for a long period of time. Research of the property cards at the building department shows that sign permits were granted for this use 25 years ago in 2000. There's been a number of different barbershops over the years. I've had subsequent conversations with the previous owner of the property and was told that a barbershop was there in the late 1970s. Prior to that, they said there was a hair salon in that location. So a personal service use of this type has been in this location for at least 50 years. Based on that fact, and that the use has been there for at least 50 years, and that the town has recognized that the use has been there for at least 25 years, we feel that the CEU would be an appropriate thing at this location. I also would like to add that as it's been there for so long, there has been no detrimental effects on the neighborhood or the environment due to this use over the past 50 years. So there is a restaurant also on the property, and the barber shop and the restaurant operate pretty much at different hours. There is a little bit of overlap of their times, but there's really no parking issue based on these uses. So we feel, again, that the CEU would be appropriate for this use. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So certificate of existing use all comes down to the date. Whenever the zoning was enacted on that property, the use would have had to have existed prior to that date. And is it 1960? Do you know the date that WSI was adopted in that zone?
I believe it was 1961.
So for this board to grant a certificate of existing use, you would need to prove that the use existed prior to that date, whatever that date is. And it can be an affidavit from somebody a prior owner, a tenant, somebody that lives in the neighborhood that, as long as we get something that we can hang our hat on, I believe then we can grant that use, but it can't just be, I heard from this person that there was a salon here previous. We need concrete evidence, and we can leave that up to you what that is, but at least for me, if we're gonna grant the CEU, it has to have something that we can point to that says this proves that it existed prior to that date.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So if we're able to get some kind of an affidavit from the previous owner saying that they had a tenant there that was a barber shop, in 1958, so whatever.
Correct, as long as you have
Right,
a signed notarized affidavit from a tenant,
Right.
previous owner, neighbor,
Okay.
somebody that has personal knowledge, I believe that's been used in the past, or if
Right.
you have an old building permit or a picture that somebody took from
Right.
whatever that
Yeah,
shows
I was trying to find some old
Yeah,
pictures.
it's
or
just,
something.
it's just,
I haven't been
it's gotta be
successful yet.
evidence-based
Yeah.
for us to.
Of course, I understand.
Any other questions? Planning?
No comments at this time.
Could we get that date exactly?
I will look it up.
Okay.
I'll let you
And
know.
and then they'll make that available to you, Mr. Grasso.
Okay, we'll.
And then we'll adjourn,
Yeah,
obviously, because we're gonna need that on the
right,
record.
okay.
So you want one meeting, two meetings?
Next meeting is the 11th? So that's in 2 weeks. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get that information in
wanna
2
go-
weeks, so maybe go to the.
We'll push it to the second
25th
meeting
then.
in
Okay.
March, and then if you don't have it by then, we can push it out.
Okay, that sounds good.
What date is that?
March 25th.
25th.
All right, so we'll adjourn it to March 25th, but let me see if anyone was here to speak on it.
Of course, yeah.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to be heard on this I'm sorry, Sabrina, did you have anything?
Did not, thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone in the audience that would like to be heard on this application? No, okay, this case is going to be adjourned until March 25th. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19245, 220 Mount Pleasant Road, LLC, 302 Nesconset Highway, Hauppauge. The location of the property should be the northwest corner of Smithtown Bypass and Nesconset Highway. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum required parking from 109 spaces to 91 for a proposed change of use from retail to commercial entertainment with 127 theater seats.
Good evening. I have the affidavit.
Only one. Oh, the site plan? I think Don has what you got, Chairman, we'll share one. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening. Bram Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, for the applicant. This is a very exciting application we have here for a entertainment venue called MD's Live on the Porch, and we are joined by Mike Del Giudice, who is proposing this particular use. We're also joined by the ownership of the property, and they're here in person also to show support for the application and to be here for the board's purposes. Just a minute on Mike before we start. Mike Del Giudice has gone from Miller Place, Long Island, to stages and performance venues throughout the world. Mike is a multi-talented performer who started in a Long Island elementary school chorus and is now a singer, songwriter, and musician known worldwide. He's a musical icon who is also humble, friendly, and dedicated to this project, which is to create a small venue for live entertainment which reflects his attention to detail and musical proficiency. MD's Live on the Porch, as it's being called, will be a small musical performance space for live music, which will be designed by Mike himself and a leading team of musical and sound engineers who have worked on local venues as well as toured the world providing sound engineering for major musical artists. The space will be purpose-built for the finest and most precise acoustics available today and will provide a specialized venue for small performances. Okay, I don't know what you were looking at. I see it's the floor plan. So with all that said, the only reason we are here today is to reduce an existing parking variance on a property that has all permitted uses. Our denial letter specifically indicates only a variance to reduce the existing parking variance on the property for a permitted use, commercial entertainment, which is proposed to occupy one of the existing storefronts at the property. The property is 602 Smithtown Bypass, Route 347, and consists of 2.14 total acres on which 3 commercial structures sit: a Starbucks retail store, a Costello's spa store, and a vacant retail store. The entertainment use that we're speaking about tonight is going to occupy the space where Costello's is, which is 4,055 square feet. Costello's is going to downsize and move into the existing vacant building, which is 3,674 square feet. The property has 91 parking spaces provided. As part of zoning board case, this board's case 18599, to reduce the required parking from 120 spaces to 91 spaces, which currently exist on the property, that was approved in 2022, on February 8th, 2022. At that time, the parking required for the Starbucks was calculated at 1 space per 50 square feet. Subsequent to that 2022 approval, the town board created a new use category called food retail, which is now Starbucks' use category. That food retail use requires 1 space per 100 square feet of gross floor area, meaning that the Starbucks now only requires less parking than at the time of its hearing and previous approval. So there's a legal doctrine which covers this, which is called the Field Delivery Doctrine, which is a case called Matter of Charles A. Field Delivery Service, Inc., from 1985, and I'm certainly happy to provide the case and its subsequent cases which referred to it, which states that a government agency or a board cannot deviate from its own precedent when presented with substantially similar facts in a subsequent case. So here, the proposed use, this indoor entertainment use, is a permitted use with the exact same parking requirement, 1 space per 100 square feet, as the existing use which currently occupies the building, which is the Costello's retail store. So there is no substantial difference between the current use and the proposed use to permit this board from reaching a different decision, considering that the uses are both permitted uses and the parking requirements are exactly the same. The decision that I referenced, this board's decision in 2022, was for a greater parking variance than we are seeking today. But that said, for the board tonight, we are going to present parking testimonies to substantiate our parking variance. Again, it's a reduction from 120 required spaces to 109 required spaces. We're still providing the same 91 spaces as was the subject of the previous 2022 hearing. We are going to be able to show that the parking for this entertainment use is going to be handled professionally, efficiently, and completely on-site with no burden to any off-site roadways. We have a parking expert with us tonight, Frank Filicciotto, so I'd like to turn the floor over to him. But before I do that, I'd like to qualify him as an expert. I know he's appeared before this board before, and his testimony's been considered as an expert. But for the record, he is the principal traffic engineer at Labella Engineering. He has professional licenses in 7 states, including New York. He has provided expert testimony in 62 jurisdictions throughout New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. And again, as I said, he's appeared before this board as an expert on multiple occasions. You certainly can ask Frank whatever questions you would like about his own qualifications, but in my experience, there's no more qualified of an expert to speak about this parking variance than Frank. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Frank A. Filicciotto, F as in Frank, I-L-I-C-I-O-T-T-O, the firm Labella Associates, 1 North Broadway, White Plains, New York. I am a professional engineer, as Bram noted, licensed in New York, 22 years of experience in the field of traffic engineering, transportation planning, site design, parking, et cetera. And I have appeared before this board on numerous occasions. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I just wanted to rewind a little bit and set the stage a little bit about how the site operates and give the board a little bit of information about how we see this site operating in the future. So I'm sure you're pretty familiar, you have the Starbucks on the east side of the site, and then you have the two buildings, the other 2 buildings on the west side of the site. I'm going to refer to this aerial exhibit that I've prepared that shows Starbucks on the east side of the site, 2 buildings on the west. This is essentially an aerial image of the intersection of 347 and Mount Pleasant Road with Bowler Engineering site plan overlaid onto it. A lot of the annotations have been removed just to make it as simple as possible to view. The proposal isn't to change any of the circulation on the site. Where you come in and leave is proposed to remain. So we're working within the context of what generally exists on the site today. The one thing I want to note is that the site is bisected by this one-way drive aisle that is fairly wide in nature. It actually approaches 30 feet in width between the Starbucks and the other 2 buildings. And for this reason, we believe that the site itself will be able to contain all of the music venues, traffic, and parking on the west side of the site. We know that events typically occur in the evening when Starbucks' demand is probably at its lowest. There will be a short period of time when there may be an overlap between when the doors open for an event, so to speak, and when Starbucks is closing. But we know that these are largely complementary uses. Starbucks is a morning or a midday draw, and a musical venue is a nighttime draw. So you have complementary uses on this site. From a parking perspective, you don't have 2 uses peaking at the same time, which is generally something we try to avoid. So I think from a high level, you have complementary uses. You have Starbucks waning in activity right when you would see the highest level activity associated with the music event. For that reason, though, notwithstanding that, we'd like to try to provide all of the parking for the event space on the west side of the site. So my aerial exhibit here shows two green areas, one darker in shading, one lighter in shading. There's a space behind the building for some parking, and we understand, obviously, we have neighbors to our rear, and we want to be as respectful as possible to those neighbors. The plan for that rear parking during an event would be for only staff and musicians to park back there. So it'd be very limited in terms of turnover. Those people would be there well before an event started. They'd park once, and then that area would be largely quiet for the duration of the event. We plan on instructing those people when they park back there to back into spaces so that when they leave in the evening, their headlights are shining into the site rather than into the neighbor's property. So that's something we're willing to obviously commit to as part of the parking operations plan. That's that dark green area, which we believe will be self-park. You come, if you're staff, you show up to work at 4 o'clock, the event's at 8, let's say, you'll park yourself. The event itself and the ticket holders, this event is ticketed. So in order to attend a musical event here, you need to have purchased a ticket in advance. There may be some door sales, but largely the events will be purchased in advance. And so the venue itself will have a very good idea of how many people are expected to come. There's 120 seats. So in order to accommodate the rest of the parking, all the event goers, for a 120-person event, there will be a valet plan in place. That's a commitment that the applicant is making as part of this project. So valets will be on site. We anticipate between 4 and 5 valets will be on site to welcome people as they come in. And then, just like any valet experience, you would give your keys over and your car would be parked by a professional. As part of my work on this project, we consulted with a professional valet company. We've had a series of calls with them to make sure that the plan I've developed is something that can be actually implemented in reality. We had good conversations, and based on those discussions, we've made some tweaks, but we believe that the area that's shown in green, in light green, is more than adequate to accommodate what we believe to be the demand associated with the worst-case event. So 120 people. When you think about events, rarely do you see people going to events by themselves. In fact, there's guidance from the Federal Highway Authority, which is essentially the umbrella of transportation at the federal level, and they provide guidance on how to deal with special event traffic management. And what they prescribe and what they recommend practitioners do is look at vehicle occupancy ratios of anywhere from 2.2 persons per vehicle to 2.8 persons per vehicle. So that's how, think about it, if you go to a wedding or if you go to a concert or something, you're usually with someone and you might be with a third person. That ratio on average is generally between 2.2 and 2.8. What I did with this particular project is I assumed a more conservative approach, and I said, let's assume 2 persons per vehicle. Let's make it nice and easy. Let's give everyone the comfort that an extra layer of conservativity has been provided and that the west side of the site is more than enough parking. So we're looking at 60 vehicles in a worst-case scenario, highly conservative approach, and that light green area is what we believe, with valet, will be able to accommodate 60 vehicles for the arrival period. A couple of things that we're proposing to do to ensure that this is orderly is the westerly driveway on Smithtown Bypass 347 will be closed with cones or barrels leading up to an event. That's to keep traffic coming in through the areas that we'd like it to do. The driveway on Mount Pleasant will be the key point of entry for people coming and going to this event. Why is that? Mount Pleasant Road driveway leads back to the rear of the site, and then you circulate in a counterclockwise fashion down to where the proposed venue is. That allows for the largest stacking of vehicles to occur. What we don't want is stacking to occur on public roadways. So we've developed a valet plan to accommodate traffic coming in primarily from Mount Pleasant Road. Obviously, human nature is such that someone ultimately will come in off of 347. If that's the case, there will be valets positioned right around this spot right here to direct them around Starbucks towards the rear so that they can get the valet booth in that location. So when we consulted with the valet company, approximately 5 professionals would be on staff for what essentially amounts to 60 vehicles. 12 cars per valet professional is more than adequate to accommodate this in a professional, organized, low-impact fashion. So based on this analysis and the plan we've put in place, we believe this is more than adequate. We believe this addresses the board's concerns relative to the variance it's contemplating, and we do not expect any adverse impact on the neighboring properties as a result of it. Happy to answer any questions you might have. If you need more detail, I'm happy to answer questions.
I know I have a couple questions. 60 cars. One of the things I think this board has to look at is the ability to park them regardless of whether you have a valet plan or not, because it's the town ordinance. You can't say there's a valet there, and the use goes with the site in perpetuity. So the questions I would have are, can this site handle that load of parking with the existing tenants? Actually, first let me ask, on the site plan is land banked parking drawn up along the, I guess that would be the north property line, and there's also some land bank spots to the south.
Yes, there's a total of 91 spaces provided inclusive of the land bank spaces.
How many are land banked total?
There are approximately 23 land banked.
So are those land bank spaces proposed to be developed?
No. They're
Okay.
proposed to remain land banked.
Okay, and I guess my question would be, so it's not going to be 91 spaces, it's going to be 68 spaces?
That's right. Built spaces, but
Built spaces, of which obviously Starbucks would need some. The adjacent retail space,
that will be closed based on their hours of operation. They will be closed by the time an event was to start.
so devil's advocate, they sell, go out of business, and something that opens up that may have the same hours of operation may go in there.
Well, would that have to be looked at, I guess? I mean, that would need to,
If it had the same parking requirement as what's there now at the 1 per 100, there would be no additional review needed. But if something had.
I'm just worrying about
I understand.
in actuality, how does it work?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it would be a question for hours of operation. But if it's a permitted use and the parking is the same, there wouldn't be another need for any additional spaces because it would be pursuant to what the code is.
Correct.
Yeah.
But obviously, having 67 spaces versus having 91, those land bank spots may need to be developed.
Understood.
Okay. I think that was all I had. Anyone else have any questions?
Right now.
Planning?
Just 2 comments for you, Mr. Chairman. First, regarding the parking variance request. The board has entertained similar types of requests for reductions in parking throughout the town, in the industrial park, in existing commercial areas, mostly to the extent that have been approved, that were not extensive with the amount of reductions. We're talking about a 15% reduction in parking overall, which is certainly not substantial. But planning would probably also just make a comment to the board regarding the proposed use because of the proximity to a residential area, that if the board were to consider approving the application, that the board take into consideration that we do have a noise ordinance, Chapter 207 of the Town Code, and that the board may, in their decision, decide to condition that the building be noise-proof to the extent that the ordinance requires.
Is that it?
That's it.
Sabrina?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Due to potential environmental impacts, including noise, parking, and traffic, DEW has asked the applicant to provide additional information in order to analyze the magnitude of such impacts and to complete our environmental review. To date, we're still awaiting these items. Additionally, DEW wishes to consider information presented by the applicant and any comments from the public before making a recommendation to the board. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight.
Yeah, just in conclusion for me, before I'll certainly sum up at the end of any public comment and after any additional questions, but specifically on noise, again, we're here only on parking. Noise is not a consideration for the parking variance. However, the comment is well taken, and certainly full compliance with the noise code would be a condition that we would accept.
Okay. Thank you. It appears we have a few people that may want to be heard on this application. Just to reiterate, if you're going to speak about this case, try and keep it to the parking, because that's all this board can really use for our decision, because they are requesting a permitted use. So if you have comments, try and limit it to what they're asking us for. So if there's anyone that would like to be heard, could you line up at the podium just so we can kind of expedite the process? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janine Cullen of Taylor, Eldridge, and Endress, and I'm the attorney for the Homeowners Association at Yellow Top Farms. Sure, C-U-L-L-E-N. And my first name is Janine, J-E-N-N-I-N-E. Good evening, everyone, and I will be quick. And while this is just limited to parking, obviously this application cannot be seen in a vacuum. It was just discussed that the traffic would be directed down Mount Pleasant Road, which is a residential road, which does directly affect my clients, the Homeowners Association. Further, it's a 127-seat theater, I believe they said, for only 60-some-odd spots with workers, musicians, valets. Just the parking and the noise will be very great. Also, as we've discussed, there has been no traffic studies done. I had to do a FOIL request. There are no traffic studies of how it will impact Mount Pleasant Road and the neighborhood there. There's been no environmental studies. And as far as the noise ordinance, there has been comments that food trucks will be allowed as well. So I think that that's just something that needs to be considered, before the board, because that, again, will affect the residents of Yellow Top Farms. And I'm only here on behalf of Yellow Top Farms. Okay, I think a lot of your residents want to speak.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi.
Give your name and address for the record,
Sure.
please. And please spell your name.
Yep, John Hoffman, Hoffman, 23 Yellow Top Lane. I am a 20-year resident of Smithtown, and I'm here with my wife, Christina, who's going to read a statement that we prepared. I'm also on the board. I'm on the board of the Yellow Top Farms Homeowners Association, and we have a petition that has been signed by 33 homeowners that, we were trying to get everybody, talk to everybody, but we have 33. If that's something I can give to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. It's obviously opposing the parking.
I'll take it.
It's right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Hoffman.
Okay.
23 Yellow Top Lane. So I did send a letter to you all last week.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to read it into the minutes of the meeting, and I have a few additional comments on it. So I'm writing to you to voice my concerns about case number. Okay.
A little slower.
And I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Okay, that's my job. Okay, so I'm writing to you to voice my concerns about case number 12945, the application for an 18-stall parking variance for a 120-plus seat theater located at the corner of Mount Pleasant Road and Route 347. This is a very small neighborhood, business-owned property, which directly backs up to 34 homes of the Yellowtop Farm Estates community. My husband and I are original owners of the community and bought our home exactly 20 years ago. Our home is directly behind this proposed theater. It is directly behind the land banked spots. So I have great concern that those will be developed for this variance, which I am wholeheartedly against. Over the 20 years, we have never had any issues on the property until you approved the application and variances for the Starbucks drive-through at the same location. That application increased lights glaring into our backyard, speaker noise from the drive-through as early as 5 a.m., and increased traffic throughout the parking lot, which starts at 5 a.m. and goes as late as 11 p.m. with truck deliveries during those hours, as late as 11:30 even. This variance has already negatively affected our everyday lives, with the adding of another variance to accommodate a 120-seat concert theater with 18-stall variance, we feel is substantial. The addition of an 18-stall parking variance on this property will only exacerbate those current problems and create additional issues with concerts going late into the evenings. The number of cars and traffic in and out of this parking lot will be immense, creating safety concerns along 347, not only Mount Pleasant Road, entering and exiting off the property, off the highway, with pedestrians on the site loitering around their cars awaiting show times. Approving the variance will allow the opportunity for pre-show and/or after-show tailgates in the parking lot. And proposed food trucks have been brought up to cater to their customers. Food trucks were proposed by the actual applicant, Mike Delgides, at an earlier presentation to our community. We are vehemently against the idea of tailgates behind our home, people eating, drinking, smoking, playing music until late hours of the night, in fact, any hour of the day. And actually, with a parking variance, where would these food trucks park? This has always been a small, quiet property. A 120-seat concert theater is not what the property was intended for. We are deeply concerned this will lead to safety and security issues and significantly impact our neighborhood's character and property values. This will be very disruptive to our daily lives and our community as a whole. And while we appreciate the value of the arts and music, and while we have been to his concerts many times ourselves, there is no need to overcrowd this small property adjacent to a single-family home community. There are already many local bars, restaurants in the town that provide live music in addition to the Smithtown Performing Arts Center right on Main Street. Also, the owner of the property is well-known in the area and has alternative land available to locate this use. It does not need to be placed adjacent to our homes, negatively impacting the lives of the 34 homes in our community. And I believe that's one of the standards you are required to prove that it's needed to go there. As there's no benefit to our community by placing this here, this should be built on an appropriate piece of land that can handle the capacity. Needing such a large parking variance in and of itself says this is not the appropriate location for a 120-seat theater, and the application should be denied outright. I want to request, I know it was mentioned, an environmental impact assessment to be conducted for the proposed property. 120 people plus employees and staff, musicians using the septic system, all that flow. I'd like to see that impact. We're very concerned with the overcrowding of this land that it will have negative effects on our adjacent properties. Also, there have been rumors through our neighborhood that people have been saying this is a done deal and that we should stop fighting it. I do request, if this is true, and the board does choose to grant this application, for all 18 parking stall for an 18 parking stall variance, I would ask the board to consider imposing some requirements or concessions for the neighbors, such as, they did mention, we do request the requirement of valet parking, maybe security behind the buildings so our homes are safe.
Fencing?
Fencing, maybe increase the fencing, and maybe just cutting back the capacity to something more realistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. One other thing I'd like to add, because I did, I'm not an expert in parking at all, and this is about parking. And I thought he did mention that he's going to close one of the entrances and exits of the lot. I think that the board should consider Insignia and Insignia's overflow of parking that requires valet parking, and they line up on 347, they'll line up on Plaisted, and those cars cannot be accommodated by Insignia, and they're moved over. What? Plaisted, I meant Plaisted. But they'll use valet parking to park those cars in an alternate site. If they're gonna park the cars crossing meat farms, the safety of crossing the road and things like that should be considered, if it can't accommodate all of the cars in that small, tiny little space that we're proposing a 120-seat theater. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ayman Isa, ESSA, 1121 Yellow Top Lane.
Could you spell your first name also, please?
Ayman, last name is ESSA.
Thank you.
1121 Yellow Top Lane. And I believe this is the most closest location to the location intended to start the new project. Actually, my backyard, only a wood fence is dividing between my backyard and the parking lot of the intended location. I have to tell you that 2 of my bedrooms' windows are less than 100 feet from that parking location. The previous business was a retail business, and I believe it was 7-Eleven. That's the last business was, handled in that location. They went out of business now, and they were open 24 hours. And I have to tell you, and I'm going to talk also about the parking, because I know this is what this application about has been presented to your prestigious board. The cars that used to come at night just to buy a can of beer or candy or whatever, it's a 7-Eleven store. That car comes at night is enough to wake up my whole family because our bedroom's windows is on that parking lot. It's inconvenient and we couldn't do nothing. It's a retail business and opens 24 hours. But now just thinking of having a business in my backyard, a musical theater or entertainment business with 120 seats, and I have to deal with, instead of hearing one car comes at midnight to buy something and leave, 2 cars maybe, now I'm going to have to live with, I don't know how many cars to be coming and leaving after midnight. I want to ask your prestigious board, would you, any of your members, any of you guys, if anyone would like to come and live in my house and having his bedroom window less than 100 feet from a parking that's going to be occupied all night long? Been living there for 9 years. The only good sleep we have now since this business became out of business, 7-Eleven opening, 24 hours. Not too many traffic at night, but just thinking of this nightmare that is going to be happening, that's mean me personally and my family will not be able to live in this house anymore. I thank you very much for your understanding, and thank you very much for giving me the time to stand in front of you, and thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Marissa Raptis, R-A-P-T-I-S, address 17 Camelot Lane, St. James. I'm an actual native of Smithtown, been here my whole life, and I'm actually excited that we're finally going to get a music hall. Huntington has the Paramount, Patchogue has a sound garden, and every time we want to go hear some live music, we have to leave Smithtown to do that. I think this is good revenue for our town. I think people who come to listen to live music will also come and have dinner at some of our local restaurants. Insignia's next door. Their parking lot is 3 times the size, and yet it backs up against Mount Pleasant and 347. They have valet parking. It works. I don't see a problem with a music hall of this size. The Paramount is much larger. Soundgarden is much larger. And I think it's good for our town and our community. Music always brings people together, and I think the location is great. If there's no problem with Insignia, with the 3 times, the parking lot in Insignia is so much more bigger. This doesn't seem as big as what we already have in place. So I'm asking the board for consideration for the music hall to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, how are you? My name is Michael Keane, K-E-A-N-E. I live at 3 Hayloft Court. Also been a resident of Smithtown in Comac for my entire life, born and brought into Comac. So one of the things I want to talk about is, and I agree, live music is great, and all those, and all those examples that were just mentioned are in a Main Street area. This should be, and I'm supportive, should be down in our revitalization of our Main Street, but I know we're going to talk about parking. One of the things that I'm concerned about up here is, because I live right there and I have young teenage kids that will go to Starbucks. That Starbucks is somewhat unique during the day hours because kids go there on their bicycles and walk. My kids walk right out of the neighborhood, and you have kids crossing over from Mount Pleasant. So it's interesting if you were to take a look in that 4 to kind of like 7 or 8 area, it's high school kids or kids on bikes and stuff in that area. So it's not just that morning and that afternoon. The next thing is when you take a look at Mount Pleasant, that back entrance to Insignia, which does have a lot of parking spot, that is for folks that, some of them that do not want to go into the valet parking, because you can come in through that front entrance. So what they do is they line up there, and then they try to get in without using the valet to do parking. So there's a lot of traffic sometimes on the busier nights on Friday and Saturday on, Mount Pleasant as it comes into Insignia. So my concern is if we're feeding cars coming in at night one way from Mount Pleasant, and then we have the Insignia cars, you could have a congestion at the beginning of the Mount Pleasant. The second is if you go behind that Starbucks, and you drive on that road, I can't point it there, that's a very small drive area coming in behind that Starbucks to turn around to the area. I would love to see if you were going to host or line the cars up, are there still enough room legally to have other cars, especially emergency vehicles, come through that area? So it's behind where the Starbucks ordering is, where they line up. The other thing is the space in between from where the hot tub place is and where Starbucks is. Well, you might have the square footage or linear footage. There's a hill that goes down that no one could really, where Starbucks' drive-through comes in, you get your order, they have a nice little landscaping. If you go on the other side of it, it slopes down. There's actually a slope down. So everyone that comes through goes right up against the cars where the Costello station is. That's where they have to drive through. My concern is if we have valet parking there, you're also going to have an issue with the traffic. The last thing I just want to mention is when it ends. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you have 67 cars and 5 valet guys. I go to Insignia a lot, and a lot of times I'm standing out there waiting to get my car. what are all those people going to be doing? Are they all going to be standing out front at 11 o'clock, 11:30 or midnight, waiting for their car to be brought up by one of the 5 valets? Again, causing noise and issues like that. So just some of the concerns I just wanted to bring up. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you. Anyone else? Come on up. Good evening.
I'm James Del Giudice, no relation, Smithtown resident, DEL, capital GIUDICE. I understand we're here, and first of all, I live about a half mile from the potential venue, and I completely appreciate, respect all the concerns of
Please talk
my
to the
neighbor.
board.
Sorry about that. And, but in reference to the parking, I feel like I want to help clarify potentially what the venue is. This is, in my perception and understanding, an upscale theatrical setting where there's no foot traffic, there's no tailgating. This is certainly not the plan for this type of venue. It's a pre-sale venue where people will come park, perhaps have dinner, go see a show, and then depart, you know. So I heard mentioning of tailgating, and I'm not quite sure that's the right description. I'm in a unique position because while I am a Smithtown resident, I do know Mr. Del Giudice personally and professionally as well, and I feel passionate to comment on this person's integrity, professionalism. We don't get to a level of success by just being talented. This is also someone who's a very successful businessman. He has a significant business acumen where he runs his own business, which I've personally witnessed and of course appreciate as well. So with that said, this venue to me seems like a desirable venue. I think it would bring a certain level of energy to an area that's quite dead right now, where there was that 7-Eleven, and of course the hot tub store would move to that location. It would bring significant revenue to the local restaurants, of course, Insignia across the way as well. So whatever that's worth, again, I respect and appreciate my neighbor's concern, but at the same time, this is an exceptionally exciting and undoubtedly a positive contribution to our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Mr. Weber, you want to come back up and address their concerns?
Just want to, I think it's interesting, the last speaker said something that I have experienced myself. So in our preparation phone calls, we've had a lot, and we've spent a lot of time trying to anticipate concerns of the residents, trying to figure out how to address the concerns of the residents. And even though, as I said, noise and sound, we will fully comply with code, there is and there will be an extensive plan for that particular issue. But again, not germane to the parking variance, but I just want certainly the board to understand, and to the residents to the extent that they will appreciate it, that we've spent a lot of time looking at this plan, as Frank talked about, looking at the parking, working with a valet company, trying to see how the best way to address any potential concerns of the residents. And just for perspective, this is, and I know we said something about 127 seats. Maybe that was in the agenda. It's only 120 seats. It can't be any more because it's only a 4,000 square foot room. And that's really, I think, important. And we certainly appreciate the comments and the support of people who reference other music venues, but it's hard to describe, and I had to learn this myself. This really is going to be unique. The Paramount and other of these larger venues are for multi-purposes. They're for multi-events. You can have a graduation party at the Paramount. That's not what this is. This is purely a specific high-end music venue. It's only 4,000 square feet. We really can't make it. We can't make it less than 120 because economically it has to work. But we also can't make it more than 120 seats because of the size. And again, in working on the overall layout, this is a music-first venue. And Mike, in discussing with him what his plans are, this is the type of music that he plays. This isn't for For me, it's not for loud rock and roll like I like, you know, a little of a heavier version. It's not for rap like my kids like. You know, this is really very much focused on Mike developing young artists, developing local artists, and giving them a music-first venue that's not also used for other things. And I just think that's really important for the board to understand, just from an overall perception of what this is going to be. Really directed, it's, as I said before, it's a musician's venue designed by a musician for musicians. So hopefully that addresses some of the overall concerns about what the fears of this might be. One thing was mentioned before about food trucks. That may have actually been something that was discussed previously. There will be no food trucks. I've been told that there will not be, as part of this proposal, food trucks. As Frank talked about when it came to parking and traffic, they weren't shown anywhere on the plan, so it's not something that's currently part of this proposal. And again, what we talked about here, and I certainly appreciate the comments about utilizing the parking on the site. And again, we're focused only on the half of the property where this location, where this particular building sits, but there is the availability of the entire site. So there are 68 parking spaces in total, but again, we believe with the valet plan that we can certainly park for a full maximum attendee number only on the half of the property where this particular building sits. Just a couple other points. One being the Starbucks itself also. So the hot tubs, Costello's hot tubs, they close at 5 o'clock on Sundays and 6 o'clock during the week. Starbucks closes at 8:30 during the week and 9 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays. So by the time they're winding down, as Frank had said before, they don't have that's not their rush times, the morning or even the afternoon, as the gentleman suggested with the high school. So by that point, by the time the concerts start and people start arriving, they're winding down their operations. So there will be parking available again throughout the site. I don't know if there's any other questions that the board has that were specifically.
There were a couple other items that were brought up during comments. One was traffic study. Do you have a traffic study to, you know, I know you said you studied the federal traffic guidelines.
Sure.
But was there a study done to make sure that this would actually work?
No, because we're only seeking a reduction in, I mean, again, we're seeking a reduction in what is already an existing parking variance. I'll let Frank discuss the traffic aspect of it, but again, the property is already approved for a variance at 120 spaces. We're only seeking a variance of 109. So all of our evidence is directed only on the parking and really the reduction in the actual parking variance.
Yeah, sorry, Frank Filiciotto again, for the record. Relative to the parking study, historically, this site has had a 7-Eleven on it. Now, I know the 7-Eleven was not doing well, ultimately closed, but a 7-Eleven generates far more traffic, certainly in the peak hour, but also every hour throughout the course of a day when compared to a music venue, which is receiving all of its entering traffic in 1 hour, and then maybe 2 hours later you have its exiting traffic. Whereas a 7-Eleven retail use is constant in and out for several hours per day. So this site was designed with that in mind. 2 access points on Route 347, 1 access point on Mount Pleasant Road. There's not much a traffic study is going to show you that hasn't already been demonstrated when this site was originally developed. So that's why we didn't do a traffic study. The Federal Highway Authority guidelines gave us an idea as to how to plan for a special event when you have people coming for a specific thing at a specific time. And so that's that 2.5 persons per vehicle guideline. And we took an even more conservative approach at 2 persons per vehicle. If we looked at 2.5, which is what is in FHWA guidance, we're talking about 48 vehicles for the ticket holders as opposed to 60. But we looked at 60 to give the board a little bit of additional comfort that, hey, if it was just, you know, someone and their spouse or significant other coming and there wasn't a third person in some of the cars, that there'd be adequate parking on the west side of the site to accommodate that. And really the valet is what does that. The valet essentially intervenes, and the whole purpose of us wanting to go with valet is to minimize the impact on the residential property, because you're creating a predictable event where people will come to a specific point, give their cars, and go directly into the venue as opposed to milling around, looking for parking, seeking the best spot, not finding it, and recirculating it around. It removes that friction and chaos from the parking experience when you have a valet. Again, I'll reiterate that the site, I took my exhibit down, but the site really benefits from having a very wide drive aisle between Starbucks and the other half of the site. You have a row of parking that's up against Costello's now, and then you have an additional 27 to 28 feet of pavement, and then you have the Starbucks drive-through lane. So the way we see this operate is you have essentially a double lane right here. So even if vehicles were queued here waiting to be serviced by the valet, someone could leave the drive-through from Starbucks, pass by, and not be interrupted at all by the valet operation. And remember, there's going to be 5 people on boots on the ground. If there is a momentary point at which there's some congestion, the valet intervenes, hold back, come. You know, there's an element of human intervention that will happen when you have a valet plan versus not having one and having it be a little bit less orderly. So that was the reason why we went that route, was to provide the best level of comfort, not only for the board, but for the residents, so that they feel that it's being managed professionally and predictably, really. So I hope that provides a little bit more insight into the way we see this operation happening. Again, the bulk of the parking for event goers will be located directly in front of the building. The building is screening essentially that parking activity from the residential neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question. Reference to the valet, you keep on talking about 5 valets. If it got to the point where you needed more, would they be able in the future to put more than just the 5 valets so people wouldn't sit there and wait for, or create commotion for the community to hear?
I'm sure they would. I asked that specific question. I said, for 60 vehicles, an event like this, how many people would you staff this with? And they said 5. I'm sure that if they saw that people were waiting a little bit longer than what is accepted, that they would add a 6th if that was needed. The other thing I want to point out is that when the music stops, there are, you're still able to stay around and have a beverage or hang out with your friends and talk about how great the show was. It's not like all 60 drivers are coming out all at once. It's not a school. There is an element of, hey, how was that show? Let's talk for 5 minutes. So that natural, willingness to hang around will meter the flow of traffic. Yes, the majority of people will want to leave, but it's not as if 60 people all at once are like, give me my keys. There will be a little bit of a metering of that traffic out. And I asked the valet, I said, in a worst case scenario, if all 60 people came out and said, I need my keys, how long would it take you to clear? He said 15 minutes. So we're talking about a very small period of time where if you had that scenario, 5 valets would be able to clear that lot within 15 minutes completely. So we're talking about, this isn't going to go on for hours and hours and hours. This is 60 vehicles at the end of the day.
And anticipating the employees, the performers, the co-checks, and the stage crew, know that you have ample parking right now for all that?
Yes, we do.
I just want to say, just on your point too about we have been asked by Department of Environment and Waterways to submit a parking assessment, so we will be doing that. Okay. So just as supplemental and follow-up as requested by that department, so that parking analysis will be submitted.
Okay. There was something I had. I noticed we visited the site yesterday, and I noticed that I guess there's like a septic field right behind the building. It's like an elevated septic field. One of the concerns that I heard from the neighbors is the fact that they see headlights, coming in from the cars that are in this parking lot. I noticed that there were no trees along that property line back there. I guess this is kind of a 2-part question for planning. I don't know, is it possible to plant on that to create a buffer?
I would defer that question to the environmental department. They'd be better suited to answer that. But if there is any space back there behind the leaching field, you could condition
Because I was
plantings.
going to say that may be one of the conditions, that we create a buffer so that we don't get that intrusive lights and maybe a noise buffer along that property line.
Well, certainly, as Frank had said before, the cars that are going to park back in this area, which are the employees, as he said, very low turnover, they will also be required to back their cars in so that there aren't headlights shining over the property line.
Them leaving the building, the performance being done, people
Correct.
being leave, and the last person leave, lights being shut off. What
Right.
time frame are we looking at?
I mean, that could be a midnight time frame. That could be a 1 o'clock in the morning time frame. No, really no different, again, with 7-Eleven having been there, no different than that 24-hour operation. So, except this will be 12, 1 o'clock, 2, whatever time it is. But again, you're talking about just a few cars in the back leaving, again, facing into the commercial site.
No one else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's it for our open cases, correct? Thank you, guys. Cases now. Case 19246.
On case 19246, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Regularly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0. Case 19249.
19249, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
The comments that you had, Sabrina, did you?
Yes, I did want to put those on the record. Thank
Okay.
you. That our secret is based on our understanding that the variance is solely for the purpose of establishing a non-conforming lot for transfer of development right purposes, and this lot will never be built upon and shall remain vacant.
Okay. Do we need to approve it with that condition, or is that just part of the record?
That's just part of my record. It's up to you if you want to.
Just part of the
add.
record, okay.
Okay,
Go ahead, Adrian.
all right.
Did you make a motion already?
I did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0. Case 19248, backwards, I don't know why.
My comment is the same on this one as well, regarding it. It's just for the purpose of establishing a non-conforming lot for TDFR purposes, and that it will never be built upon and will remain vacant.
Okay, now I'll make the motion now. On case 19248, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0. Now, case 19251.
Do I have to change anything here as far as the, that wall, that just
Yeah.
make the condition that fence has to be brought in?
So they're asking for a 0-foot setback.
Yes.
That would be to the property line.
Okay,
If the fence is in fact in the town right-of-way, and you wanted condition that it has to be relocated onto their property, or in lieu of, they have to contact the highway superintendent and see if he's willing to give them an easement agreement.
all right,
And if not, then they'd have to move it back
I
anyway.
believe that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
okay. On case 19251, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented with the condition that the fence that is on Hazel Drive, we brought back into compliance at their property line, or they can contact the highway department.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries with conditions, 4-0. Okay, case number 19252.
On case 19252, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Case 19253 is adjourned to
March
March
11th.
11th, correct? Case 19247.
Okay, on case 19247, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. All right, case 19240.
Okay. On case one, did we want to, they went, changed it. I guess it's still going to go 15 to 32, am I correct?
If
That's the
If you
request.
approve it to 32, yes.
Yeah, okay, even though they, all right, in case 19240, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Case 19250, we kept open and adjourned to March 25th. And case 19245, we are waiting on a secret, so no action. I believe we have some on the back of the agenda here. Farrell, I thought there was, we have something on Farrell, correct?
We have to adopt the findings?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
What? Okay?
You have comment?
I do have a comment, and if you want to read it.
Give up, where did I?
What?
Yes, so on this one, we were just actually mirroring planning department's comment regarding the new block retaining walls that have been constructed without permits along the entirety of the south, east, and north property lines, as well as there's a portion that encroaches into the town right-of-way to the west. We recommend that they contact the building department regarding the permits and the highway department regarding the removal of the encroachment.
You want me to explain?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, after the last public hearing, it came to our attention, we were unaware of this up until that point, that the applicant had cleared the property, had replaced some existing retaining walls on the property, and added additional retaining walls around the perimeter of the property because he regraded it without any permits. And those retaining walls need variances for setbacks. And one retaining wall is actually in the town right-of-way. The previous retaining wall was there as well. However, he replaced it and he put it in the town right-of-way. He came into the office, we had a couple of conversations about where he's at in this process, because this is a modular home, and he has a time frame that he has to follow in order to have everything fall into place. If we had had him come back before the board for the retaining walls, in order for him to move forward with his application to get a building permit, it would have been a financial disaster. So we discussed it and decided that the retaining walls were not a priority for him getting a building permit for his foundation permit, but that before he could have a CO, he would have to come back before the board for variances for the walls. He's already submitted the application. He's scheduled for March 25th to come back before the board for the walls.
Okay.
So now.
So this is a separate application?
So this is a separate application.
So am I adopting these findings?
Yes.
Okay.
And the LWRP conditions.
Okay.
Did you
Do
have
you
them?
have those?
No, I don't have anything.
You should have them right here.
So I'm approving.
That's it right
this.
here. You want
Yes.
to get up here?
But where are these?
So it was right here, Adrian.
Where?
There you go, Bill. Here's the findings.
Yeah, that's fine, I read this one, yeah.
And the LWRP is
That's what I'm looking for, the LWRP.
not here.
I have the findings and everything, but I don't have the WLRP conditions. Do you?
No. Here's the findings.
Is it incorporated in
It's
the
not,
findings?
well, it's in the language of the findings, it's in there.
Okay, okay.
It's consistent with the town's LWRP.
Okay, so let me do this. On case 19237, I make a motion to adopt the findings and to approve this application as presented.
Second.
And if they want to adopt the LWRP conditions separately.
Yeah, and
Do we want to?
adopt the
Do we want to
LWRP?
just make the LWRP
As
conditions
as
as
part
part
of
of
the
this
conditional
decision?
approval.
Yeah.
As a condition of this approval?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe
Are
we
they
have a
here?
motion there, or do you need that cleaned up at all? Yeah, so Adrian, just put them both together in one motion. So you're going to adopt the findings
I approve it with the LWRP conditions?
as part of this
Yeah.
decision? Yes.
Okay, in case, I'll redo it. On case 19237, I'll make a motion to adopt the findings and to approve this application as presented with the comments from the LWRP to be adopted.
Second.
All right,
Okay.
you have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved with conditions, 4-0. Okay, this one, 19241,
This is the shed.
yes. Okay, you guys want to have a little discussion on 19241?
Yeah.
So did everyone get a chance to go and take a look? That was the shed in the side yard on, at 27 Bowman Lane.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, comments, concerns?
Well, the only thing that I noticed, he had skids that went from one to the other. I mean, the deck was a little higher than the pitch of the driveway, but I'm assuming that was because of the flow of the water. When it rains, it would go into there. He said he was gonna put a gravel ramp, because, I rang the bell when I went there. And he was gonna put a gravel so he can go in and out, because the way now, it's like there's a bridge of skids, which doesn't give a good appearance. So he was gonna put a gravel ramp so the water could still drain and give him a ramp going up. And, maybe they may wanna put some bushes along that side too.
That was one of the
separate
things that kind of struck me too, is it is kind of impacting to the neighbor, because it's right up on the side of the house and just kind of sitting on top of that platform right next to their house, kind of, it's a little impacting on the neighbor. Did
I
you
was
guys-
there, I visited it twice, and I found that the platform is not that high.
No, it's,
It is not that high, but I would condition it if we could get some shrubs maybe onto the side there. And with him doing the gravel and everything, I just can't see the lowering that platform. That's,
he was just gonna make it a ramp, so at least, because the driveway, we all saw it, is pitching, so the water
Right.
pitch will go right there into the shed. If he puts gravel there with a ramp, that gives a
Right.
drainage for the water, because, I looked in the backyard and the other side, it's sloping, that whole back.
Oh, yeah.
There's really no place else to do unless he removes the kid thing, so putting shrubs there to block the view,
Yeah.
it's not really much of an eyesore.
it's really a very unique piece of property.
Yeah.
I walked in the back, there's really not much back there, and the slope is a lot.
It
Yeah.
drops off a lot. He's limited to what he can do, but if they put, like you said, bushes
Yeah,
to give the appearance, the blockage, that would be a,
There was also some concerns about, rodents and animals going underneath. Would you guys
yeah,
condi-
but that can be solved very easily. If, what do you call it, underneath the shed,
Lattice.
I have done it before, if he puts a covering underneath that shed or around the whole
skirt.
around the whole entire shed. So that can be a condition that he has to do, so there's no rodents going back into, underneath.
the back is really high.
Yeah.
If it was low to the ground, I can see animals going in, but that high, I don't think any animals would go in there. But if you put lattice or close it off, so,
Yeah.
tight lattice, not the wide lattice, it'll be something to.
So do you want to make a motion then?
You want me to read?
Bill, did you have anything? Did you have anything to add?
No.
No?
Okay.
Make a motion?
Okay, in case 19241, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented, however, with conditions that lattice work is brought around the shed, And-
Around the platform.
around the platform, I'm sorry. And then maybe on the side of the
Property.
property, that we could do shrubs. I don't know what,
Type 2
Title
planting-
I?
Type 2 plantings?
Type 2?
Maybe bottom
Plants?
of the platform too.
Well, so type 2 plantings is a very specific
Okay,
direction for the planning department would.
yeah, to do type 2 and to maintain them.
We'd have to see how much room he has. Quite frankly, the platform that shed is sitting on is way too big for it. And if the shed had been moved up against the side of the house, he might have 3 or 4 feet that he could do plantings in, and they would survive. The other option is, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to ask for it, is to continue the fencing to the face of the shed and go across the front of it
Why
to
would you
enclose it so you can't see it. It'll be less impacting to the neighbor, and he can put a gate in the shed, in the fence, and he
Is
can
there
access
a,
the shed.
Is there a fence currently? I didn't
There's
notice
a
the fence.
a fence coming up the side of the
Yeah.
property that stops right alongside that shed.
So it was a 4 foot, 6 foot?
6 foot.
6 foot fence,
Mm-hmm.
and by bringing it in front of that shed wouldn't encroach on the front yard setback?
No, because it would be even with the face of the house.
So, I mean, that's more customary, I think.
I can't see seeing, putting a fence in front of that shed, having a gate. I think that,
But what you know, whatever you guys decide, I just think that may actually make it look more in character of the neighborhood than just kind of a shed sitting on the front yard.
He does have a fence on the other side, so
Yeah.
we're uniform both sides. I'd be
And I
okay
think that
with,
may actually be,
I'd be okay with that, too.
yeah.
you'll be okay with that? So,
Yeah.
so you want
So,
to,
yeah, so why don't you change the condition to, rather than type 2 plantings, to continue the fence
Okay.
to the front and enclose the shed completely.
okay. Are we still doing the lattice work?
Yeah, that would, yeah.
Okay. Okay, on case 19241, I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the conditions that the fence is brought up to the front and is brought in front of the shed, I guess, with a gate for them, if
Yeah,
they
I'll
need it.
get the verbiage. Yeah.
Yeah, and that lattice work would be around the platform.
Okay, we got a motion
Second?
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0 with conditions. All right, we have 19234.
What's 19234?
That
Anybody
was-
want a copy of the noise ordinance?
Do you have it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Is that section 270?
It is section
Oh,
207.
207. Okay. So we are on 19234.
Anybody else?
Where are you? I don't,
No?
You don't have that on your,
no. What do you,
right here?
what's the?
Oh. I was looking at the wrong one. Never mind. I was on the wrong page. So that's it.
Oh, okay.
We're done.